You're listening to the Salty Sex Cast with Mariah and friends. Minimize the fear. Expand your awareness.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Salty Sex Cast. It is your host, Mariah, coming from Utah. And I have another guest. We're in studio. For those who are watching us on YouTube and can see, I have Brady here.
Hey.
And a guest. Her name's Mandy. I'll introduce her in just a second.
I'm not the guest.
You're not the guest.
I'm just a seat filler today.
You're a seat filler. You're more than that, Brady.
Like the Oscars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an important job.
But before we get too far into our episode, I just want to take a second and thank all of our guests coming on. They, share their stories. They donate their time, all of this stuff. It's really, really important for our show. But all of our listeners as well. Out of 2 million active podcasts right now, you chose us.
Aw.
Thanks. It means the world to us.
Yay.
Okay, so we have a guest. I'm so excited to talk about this topic because it's something that also affects me in a way. And it's something that I don't have a lot of education around. I haven't taken the time to go study any of this stuff other than kind of what I've read in my own health books and things like that. But the topic is herpes. I have herpes.
I don't have herpes.
I have genital herpes.
Okay.
I'm not aware that I have herpes.
You're not aware.
Like,
so
I feel like I should say that, but yeah, so like I've never had a cold sore.
Okay.
And I've never had a genital outbreak. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I think I've been tested for like 2 types.
Oh, okay.
Because there's 2 types. There's HSV1 and HSV2.
Oh, okay.
1 are cold sores and 2 would be genital.
Okay. And I get tested every 6 months.
Perfect.
And then my wife gets tested every 6 months, but we're on like opposite schedules. So it's like the 2 of us are getting tested every 3 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I had my first cold sore outbreak. Brady got the heater.
Sorry.
No worries. We forgot to turn it off. I had my first cold sore outbreak last year, like last March of 2021. And I was like, what the fuck, man? I thought woohoo, I never get one. Yeah, I'm probably never going to get one just because like my spouse has them, that kind of thing. I grew up in a family that I was exposed enough. I would have. So I'm pretty sure I was just dormant for so long and that like just extreme stress. And I was like, okay, all right, body, I hear you. I know it now. And so it gave me the opportunity to find out more information instead of being like, yeah, it's something that someone else has to deal with, not me. But our guest today, Mandy, thank you so much for coming on, and has chosen to stay off camera for this topic, not because she's ashamed of her experience, but because she wants to protect her family and their identities and didn't want anything tied to like her image and coming back to, her children or anything like that, just because of how stigmatized some of this information is. And it's something that we're going to break down that stigma today. We're going to really talk about, hopefully give you a lot of information to minimize a lot of that fear around the herpes virus. Virus?
It is.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. I was like, hold on, I just said it. And now I'm like questioning myself.
Nope, it is.
Okay. And also, Mandy's a medical professional. So like this is a great person to ask questions about, that it's a quality resource, not only her own experience, but her education as well. So Mandy, I'd love to hear your experience with genital herpes. What was like the first time? How'd you know? How old were you? All of that.
Okay. So whenever I first started getting symptoms, I had no idea. Zero clue what was happening to me. I, we're just trying to think of like all the most common things, UTI, maybe a yeast infection, something that could have caused like, just not feeling good. And then later on the blisters and stuff. But I was only 18 years old whenever I was first diagnosed. I was a senior in high school. And And these symptoms, usually your very first outbreak, they call it your general. That is like going to be your general outbreak. And it can last up to 2 weeks. And it's going to be usually, most commonly, will be your worst outbreak you will ever have. And I hold that very true. This time after like I said, had no idea what was happening to me. I was running a fever. I wasn't feeling good at all. But before the blisters came, it was like some of the symptoms were just like if you maybe had a yeast infection or a UTI.
Okay.
That was like kind of like the start. But then there was a fever. And then there was like, if people do get cold sores, they can relate to this. You'll get like the tingling or kind of like the lightning bolt sensation right
like
before.
the zing.
Yes.
I call it the zing.
Yeah, right before you get like a cold sore on your lip. That happens as well on your genitals. So that kind of started happening. Like I said, 18-year-old, born and raised in the Bible Belt, had no idea.
Excuse me.
So I went to school. I was just trying to fight it off, think, after school, I'll go to the drugstore. Well, it got so bad during that time that I had to call like one of my friends to actually come get me from school because I can't remember, but at that time, my parents, I couldn't call them. They were doing something else. And whenever they dropped me off at home, it was the pain and the virus was like attacking my body so much. It's just bits and pieces. I could barely remember. My fever was getting so high. My mom came home. She was like, "What's wrong?" And then, I told her, she took me straight to the gynecologist. And that's whenever I got the diagnosis. But up until then, the virus was running so rapid through my body. I don't even remember that.
So you said you were experiencing pain, like what kind of, like generalized pain?
Oh, yeah.
In the area? Or like it wasn't like all over your body? Or?
It was all over your body because it starts almost like flu-like symptoms.
Okay.
Like just achy.
Like whole body aches
the whole
and just
body.
the fever. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whole body. But then the actual like pain was very generalized.
Can I ask a dumb question?
Always. Well,
There's no
it's not my story.
No dumb questions.
Well, I can't believe I've never asked anybody this before, but like in general, you don't get a fever with a yeast infection, right?
No,
Okay.
you don't.
Okay.
But a UTI, that's an infection.
Okay, so
a
you
UTI,
might get a fever with a UTI?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's usually one of the first symptoms with the UTI is like a low-grade fever before you start feeling like the pain or burning of urination.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Or like the constant feeling like you need to go.
It's good to know.
Yeah.
It sounds like having a vagina is really hard.
Oh my God.
It's
Don't even get me
terrible.
fucking
Yeah,
started.
it's terrible. I wouldn't suggest it.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Okay, so like the memory is even foggy because so much was going on during this time. You're 18 years old. I'm guessing that sex education wasn't very quality. What's the word?
so, like,
Bible Belt? I'm hearing a lot of abstinence only or like fear-based.
Very fear-based for sure. Abstinence, yes. The thing is that just from my family and how I was raised, we were very raised like open, and you weren't, you didn't have to be very modest at home, or, my mom and I and my sisters, we all shared everything, and there was no personal space or boundaries. But then whenever the topic became of sex, that's whenever it completely changed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like it was just the fear mongering. You didn't have very much sex education because it was all about just your reproductive system and your periods and, changing and all of that. But before that, all it is, no, you just don't have sex until you're married. You don't.
So after you go to the doctor, get tested, what happens next?
What happens next is a little bit like awkward with it, since I'm still in high school. I'm living, I'm still with my parents, and the whole conversation of, how did this happen? Where did you get it? You know, kind of coming from like where you don't talk about sex with your parents to having to.
Now we're going to talk about all of it.
Now we're going to talk about like an STI.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about your partners, and we're going to talk about like all of that. That was huge and so awkward, and it was not approached very well. Aww. I don't think. But that only lasted for a short time.
Okay.
So after that hurdle, it was okay, and then I just took it upon myself to educate myself. Mm-hmm. And even with that, even with my own education, nobody else around me, they weren't. And so that isn't something that you can openly go and discuss, especially, you know, whenever you're, you know, your next partners or your boyfriends or whatever.
Yeah.
That was a hard deal. But luckily in my experience, I haven't ever had anybody say that they didn't want to be with me because of it. And I've always been very open about it, especially with any potential partners. But it did help in the sense of, you know, there weren't any more one-night stands. There weren't anything like that. I actually had to, well, I'm not even going to say actually, but you had to take the time out to get to know somebody to see if it's actually somebody that you want to share that part of your life with.
Because it can be used against you.
Oh, absolutely.
That information. Yeah. You, especially being a senior in high school, if it's like another high schooler or something and you're wanting to get frisky or whatever. And then you're like, hey, before we go any further, I have to tell you I have herpes. And then they're like, what? And then like tell the whole school, you know, it could backfire with that uneducated mindset again, and like not understanding it fully and thinking you're a leper and you're diseased.
Oh, slut shamed for sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
Wholeheartedly.
I do want to ask, so the minute that you get these test results, and not even just like your parents' reactions or anything else, what went through your mind?
Oh, I think I probably slut shamed myself, especially with who my partner was. There was like a 15-year age gap. I felt very safe and secure, and especially with my mentality, with my age, this couldn't happen to me, you know, and with who it was. And whenever I disclosed this information, I'm like, hey, I just got the news that I have herpes. I was like, why didn't you tell me? I'm so young. And I'll never forget this. His reply back was, but I'm young too. Right? Like, what does that have anything to do with it?
No responsibility. No, oh my gosh, I didn't know. I'm glad you told me, so now I know. Or, oh, I did know. I'm sorry, I never told you. Like, no responsibility.
Nothing. No. It was never discussed.
Wow. So I'm guessing that relationship ended.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I ended it.
I guess, I mean, even if it didn't, I don't want to make that judgment, but
right.
How he reacted would.
Correct. There was no validation. There was nothing. There was not a conversation of how this happened or remorse or owning any of it. So I was all on my own.
When I hear stories like this.
Yeah.
Like, it always blows me away how shitty people can be sometimes. And in general, I hear the stories about men towards women, and it's just like, I'm always kind of blown away by it.
Yeah. And at this time, like, you just have to take in consideration of, you know, age and where I was at this time. I felt like it was all kind of my fault for some reason. Like, how in the world are you, but also you asked like what was going through my brain was like, you know, how am I ever going to have children? I'm going to have to just have a C-section, you know, even like with my partners getting married, all of those things. Those are all the things that
through.
Yeah. Flashes through, and you don't know how to navigate that yet.
And there's not a lot of public people to model that off of.
No.
I mean, if we're looking at when you were 18, that was several years ago, and there, like, social media isn't around. You can't go search, you know, a hashtag to go find information.
MySpace days.
Man, I miss MySpace.
I do too. Simpler days.
We need Tom back.
But I mean, you have internet at least, so to find information and you can kind of at least get it. You're not going to an encyclopedia in the library.
No. Yeah. No.
But that's still really hard. There's no healthy role models on how to live a quality, fulfilling life with having this
virus. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is. And especially with just the term herpes. I mean, it's so stigmatized regardless. But if it's on your face or your lips, you can sugarcoat it. It's a cold sore. It's a fever blister. It's no big deal.
Oh, they totally say like
it's okay.
There's so many different names. Even when I went to go get a Breva, like after I like broke out, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, like it does say fever blister on it. They don't even, the packaging of stuff doesn't even call it out. And I was like, this is herpes. And so for the first thing, for any listeners who are thinking, I would love to challenge all of you to start calling it herpes or referring to that as herpes in your mind and saying, yes, cold sores is herpes. It's the herpes virus. Because that can start, again, destigmatizing this word. I have been guilty of being like, oh, you got the herp, you know, to friends or whatever.
I
like
do too, though. Like I have it and I always use this as play, you know, because if you can't laugh at yourself, I mean, come on, you can't always just take it so seriously or be ashamed of it. It is what it is.
Herpes is the adult.
I wonder, like,
cooties.
I was just thinking, I wonder if a Breva doesn't have herpes on it, so people don't try to apply it in the wrong location.
Well,
That is probably a good perspective because whenever you do hear herpes, your mind automatically goes to your genitalia.
yeah.
Right? You don't think of it as, you know, herpes is also chickenpox. It's shingles.
Oh, I've had chickenpox.
Yeah. Those are the same in the same family. Shingles is called herpes zoster.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. They're all in the same family, which lies dormant in your
nervous system.
Yeah, in your nervous
then.
system.
What was that?
I lied earlier then. I have had herpes.
Well, you've had the herpes.
Chickenpox.
Yeah. So these viruses, and my joke didn't land because you interrupted me.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say? I'm sorry.
No, you were already on your thought process, and I kind of was like, I was just like, herpes is the adult cuties, but I was just kidding. Again, because we were just kind of talking about making light of it, but also having it this acceptable form of how we are thinking of this virus, along with, you know, a lot of people have it.
So 1 in 5.
Yeah.
1 in 5 people have it. And another thing is I've heard and I've been said to, you don't look like a person who has herpes.
You don't look like herpes.
I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, what is a person supposed to look like?
Yeah.
You know, like,
well, and
I've never thought about that. What would a person with herpes look like?
you don't look like a person with herpes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the first thing I think of as genital herpes is the image in my health book in high school of a dick that was just covered in sores. Open, like pussy, horrible, hideous, something of fuck yeah, I don't want that. I don't want that to touch
You don't
me. I
want
don't,
that.
you know, right? But this is, again, the fear-based education where they're going on the far example of when this is not treated, when it is ignored, when, you know, like most people don't have that experience, which I hate that that's what, I wish it was like, here's a typical case, here's an extreme case, here's maybe even a minor case so you can understand
all of it.
Oh my
From
God.
each stage, because I am guilty. I ignored it too long because I was just trying to do what I could in my own head, trying to make myself better, not even thinking that it could have been herpes. Like that didn't even cross my mind.
So you were thinking along the lines of the UTI or the yeast infection. So you were like doing those sort of remedies?
Yeah, I guess so. So I did ignore it. And I had my first outbreak was something that would probably be in like your health journal of like a really bad one. I couldn't go to school for 2 weeks because I could barely walk.
Oh, geez.
Yeah,
Mandy,
it was that bad.
Because it is painful.
It was
I'm sure,
horrific.
you know, when you hear blisters, open sores, anything like that, like, it sounds
And
pretty.
I would love to educate anybody that even remotely could think just one little something that you don't know if it's ingrown hair or if it's herpes, just go get it checked. because you don't want to wait too long. You don't want to ignore it.
Yeah.
I would never want that for another human being ever.
Well, speaking of like not wanting to ignore it, that kind of thing, I broke out in shingles when I was 14. So I had no clue what it was. Fear-based education, right? So that's my only example. And I was like, I haven't had sex. No one's even touched me down there. Like, I don't know. But it was like kind of like my upper butt crack too. So I was like, it's something I got from the toilet seat. You know, like all the shit you hear, right? It was shingles. And, you know, they were like, we have never seen a case from someone this young. Like, obviously, and going through puberty and lots of changes, my body was under stress. So like that was kind of the thing. And they did warn me, typically once you break out in shingles, it can come back and like just kind of be prepared and know what it was. So I think it was like the next summer, I had like, you know, I was shaving everything down there. It was hot. I was probably in a skirt and like wore too tight underwear. So it was like really rubbing. So I had like this like inflamed rash and then ingrown hairs. Like this is, I'm painting a beautiful picture, but I was like, we have to go. I think I have shingles, another shingle outbreak. Like, and they were like, no, those are just
razor burn.
Yeah, razor burn.
Here's some calamine lotion.
Yeah. Right. But I was like, okay. But it was helpful because for one, being on my rear, I didn't really get to see it other than kind of looking at it in a mirror and like knowing what it felt like and the itchiness. Good God.
Yeah.
You know, it's very related to chicken pox. So if you remember how itchy you were, if anyone's actually had that. So I felt stupid when they were like, yeah, no, it's not that. But then the nurse came in and she was just like, but it's really good that you come in, you know, when you are concerned. Most people go too long.
How awesome is that she validated you?
Yeah,
even then.
I'm
really
15. Cool. I feel stupid anyway. I'm fucking spread eagle on a table.
Right.
It's not fun. So for you to like just also point that out, you know, it's okay. It's okay to be wrong too.
Absolutely.
Go and have a fucking ingrown hair, and maybe they can also help with that too. If they can fester, they can like things can happen with those too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and it's like even now we are all lucky to have like iPhones or some sort of smart, you know, device at the palm of our hand. So if we see something, all we need to do is like Google it. You know, whenever I first experienced this, I still had a flip phone, you know, the razors, the pink ones.
Oh, I had a red razor. I love the red razor.
Wasn't that great?
your personality is a red razor, Brady. Indestructible,
just real hardy.
Well, I got the red one because it was supposed to support people who had AIDS.
Yeah, but like
And look at me now. I'm on a podcast about
sex education.
where we're talking about herpes.
Love it.
Yeah.
All the herpes.
What color would they make that phone?
Oh, geez. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
That was a question I don't care to answer. Thanks, though. I don't have an answer for you. That's what I'm saying. Flip phone, razor, pink
Sorry.
razor. We interrupted you.
Okay. Yes.
I got excited about my old school razor. Sorry.
No, I couldn't just like look it up, you know, Google it. Like, what does herpes look like? You know,
So you had to go on a computer.
Yeah. And it was my parents' computer, and I wasn't about to leave that kind of search on there.
Sure.
So
that was before you could delete search histories.
Yeah. So I was like, no, or maybe I just didn't even know how. I'm not sure. But so luckily now we can, you know, look that up and compare, I guess, to kind of give you an idea. But just for like a little tidbit, whenever it is any type of like a herpes virus, regardless if it's 1 or 2, it will begin, if you look close, it will have little tiny different little pustules inside of it. It'll look like one big blister, but there'll be little
bump.
teeny tiny ones all inside of it.
Okay.
Because that's usually like the common, you know, I don't know, view of what they look like.
So like a cold sore, when you have like that bump and then you kind of see like the little white dots.
Yes. Yeah. Those are the little pustules in it. And that's what almost all, like even if it's shingles, like the Zoster, they all kind of look like that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And just for, you know, your viewers, if they do have it like on their mouth, they need to be really careful because that can be transferred to like any other genitalia spot or oral sex, because then you could actually give your partner, they will have genital herpes, but it's going to be HSV1. So it'll be the so-called cold sores. but they'll have it just,
And they'll still break out down
they'll
there.
still break out and everything. And then also the HSV2 can be transferred orally as well. And if you do have a cold sore, you always have to be very vigilant about like washing your hands and stuff, because you can spread that to your eyes. And yes, you can spread it to your eyes, and then you can like, or your ears, anything, anywhere that you have like an open wound, that virus can get inside of it.
Oh, geez.
And that can cause, you know, the outbreak and the virus
Blisters.
Yeah.
So, because that was, you know, something, anytime my husband's like, I got a cold sore, I was like, bullshit, that's your excuse for not eating me out. I'm just kidding, because he would love to eat me out, you know, but there's times that I'm like, whoa, why are you going down there? You have a cold sore. He's like, oh, I forgot for a second. I was like, that's not okay to forget.
No.
You know, or even like drinking from a drink, you know, there's times that we share so much. He's like, I have a cold sore right now. And I was like, God damn it. Take your soda, you know, or whatever it is.
Do you still feel that way now that you've had a cold sore? I mean, obviously you don't want it transmitted.
We're still pretty aware. I'll be like, hey, I've had 3 now, since I've started. And so just being really aware of it. I am now more educated, so they heal a lot faster. Thank you, Mandy. But you know, I think we're just, it's a good courtesy to also say, like, it's funny because even my kids, they drink from my water bottle all the time. And then, you know, my daughter was just like, went to go drink, and she was like, wait, do you have a cold sore?
Good.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. You know, just being aware, and it's not a bad thing. And I don't want them to feel bad if they did get them. Like, oh, it was a mistake I made and I did drink from something mom had, you know, whatever it is. And like, you can't, sometimes it's almost impossible to track back when you had a cold, or like how you got that one. For you on your kit, you know, you knew specifically what happened with how rapid genital herpes comes, right? Does that one sit more dormant longer? Do you even know?
So I don't think mine sat dormant at all.
Gotcha.
Usually you will have, right whenever you are exposed to the virus, it takes about 2 weeks for it to, but like I said, I started having, you know, a little bit of symptoms here and there that are kind of common symptoms. So of course I just chalked it up for something else.
Oh yeah.
But I think that probably started 3 or 4 days before an actual like blister came. But the blisters didn't come like all at once. And the thing is that whenever it was just that little, you know, blister here and there, hey, it was an ingrown hair. It was like all of these things that I just made excuses for. And also because I kind of ignored it too long because I wasn't educated, and like I had that mentality. That could never happen.
Okay, so I did get permission to say this story about a friend who had the SV1. HSV, wow, and RSV,
yes, the herpes simplex virus.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe if I actually listened to the name of it and was able to. Okay. On her genitals. So she was dating somebody who got cut on their lip and gets cold sores. But it was just a cut, right? Not a big deal. And ate her out. And then she was like, I was on a trip. We were out in like the water and the sand, like on the lake. So she's like, thought maybe just like a rash had happened, something like there, but ended up getting tested and a blood test as well that was positive for the cold sore virus. And so was like really confused, and then took a lot of time to educate herself on like, well, what the fuck happened, right? Because she was pretty upset about it. Felt like she was really, you know, careful about some things. And telling me the story, I was like, no, I always remember my sister getting, because my sister gets cold sores really, really bad, just getting super pissed anytime I would hit her in the face, because we're super nice to each other. But she was like, I'm gonna get a fucking cold sore now, you know, or whatever, or like having any crack open, because you can still spread that virus even if you don't have an active cold sore, or typically the stress of getting hit can start creating one, and maybe it was just in the beginning stages.
It's called shedding, right?
Yes. Yep.
You got it.
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was another thing, you know, where how it could be passed, and just kind of not being overly educated on how it does pass from person to person, and or, you know, the two different viruses, how they can how you can be exposed. I'm like over here doing like my lips to crotch thing, but
crotch to lips and lips to crotch.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. Be careful with all of that. Anytime someone puts their mouth to your crotch, you say, let me check your lips. Do a lip check. Just kidding.
And you just ask, like,
you can't,
you know, you
ask.
can't, you can just ask, but a lot of people just will, it's just a cold sore, because they don't understand that it can transfer to other areas, and how that can be a lifelong ordeal and a disease that you're giving to somebody that they will always have to deal with a different type of stigma, because there's not a stigma if it's on your face.
Well, because everyone can see it, and, you know, there's a Breva, you know, like there's these commercials that have, I mean, worked really hard on to like destigmatize cold sores
and gave it a fluffy name,
right?
Like a cold sore of a fever blister instead of herpes.
It's herpes. Yeah, it is herpes. I have herpes, and I'm okay saying that. And that's going to be the title of this episode. Yeah. So like,
it has taken me a long time, and even like now, I still have some really, really close friends to me that I've never even shared my story with. Never. It has never been anything that I am openly talking about. So I am really excited about sharing my story. I want to get, like, even for myself, I want to stop having a stigma for myself, even, of stop thinking like, oh man, I can't share that story. Oof, no. What will they think of me?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm dirty now. Like, what? What makes me dirty? You know, it's
in fact, I trust you more because of how educated you are. Right? I'm like, I know, you know, and being a medical professional as well, I'm like, she knows her stuff. Like, I really, truly trust the information, all of that. But I would love to hear kind of now your journey with it. We talked really about when you were diagnosed, how you discovered all of that, even like the internal thoughts that were going on. But you've also talked about partners that you've been with. You've had, you know, you've told about and disclosed that information, and have never been turned away.
Right.
What's the word?
It's just, I haven't had anyone say like, no, I don't want to be with you. But usually whenever I approach this, I have been with somebody, like we've been talking for a while, we've been dating, we've built this, you know, kind of trust. So, and then I go in it talking about just the information about it. And I've even provided information to, you know, partners like, hey, you don't have to say anything right now. And I just want you to know that it's okay if you don't feel, you know, comfortable or safe, or you don't want to chance it. That's okay. And I guess since maybe I gave it that approach and made sure that they know, of course, like internally, if that did happen, that would suck, right? You know, it would feel really bad, but I wanted them to know that it's okay if they do.
Yeah.
But I have, I've been married for 10 years. We've been together for 11. And my husband, he has never contracted herpes from me. I've had 2 children, my first child was an unexpected C-section, but I went into it trying to have a vaginal birth. But with my second child, I had a VBAC, and that is a vaginal birth after cesarean section. And I went into it and did a all natural, and Valtrex is actually safe for you to take. And I did it with both pregnancies after like 36 to 38 weeks. So you take your Valtrex every day, like a lower dose. And so you can make sure you don't have an outbreak. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah.
And let's say one kind of outbreak broke through that medication, you know, you just say, no, okay, C-section time.
Yeah.
But thankfully that I never had to experience, you know, an outbreak during the time.
And sorry.
No, go ahead.
And Valtrex is the virus suppressant. So you can take it to avoid a breakout, or you can take it once you have a breakout started that can help you get over it quicker, minimize
it just kind of lessens the time. But the best practice is always to have some on hand. And right whenever you start feeling that like tingly, or you start getting achy, especially, or if you know that you're going through something super stressful, if you know that your body's going to be under stress, regardless if it's a surgery or just, life.
Yeah.
You're going to get in a fist fight with Mariah.
Yeah. Or whenever she, hits me right in the crotch, I'm going to go straight to my medicine cabinet and go get some Valtrex. Yeah. Just to prevent it.
Well, when you were talking about like, oh, if you're like tingly or anything, I was like, oh, I would have to like, there's certain pants that I wear that are so fucking tight that sometimes like a lip kind of goes numb or something. And you're just like, oh my gosh.
Christ.
Right? But I'd have to like make sure I'm like, oh, is it Valtrex time? I'm like, I don't know.
Your fashion choices are going to cause blood clots.
Right? Like, you need like blood circulation down there to your vulva. You know that, right?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
It was really mostly like, I don't have them anymore, but like those really crappy jean shorts that you're like, they're so cute, but once you sit down, they just go right up your crack. And so like, they're
your
just,
ass eats them.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I can't wear those cute Daisy Dukes.
I just want to go back on record that it sounds like having a vagina. Everything's a problem.
It really is.
So you've had success navigating healthy relationships.
Yes.
Healthy, pregnancies and births and everything.
Yep.
Plus the bonus of your kids having
antibodies.
Antibodies.
Yes. Yeah. Because whenever I was pregnant with them, with my bloodstream and everything, my body shared those antibodies that I already have towards the virus. And then through breastfeeding and all that.
What's the science on that? Like, does that make them more resistant if they're exposed?
Yeah, usually. So from what I've read, it is whenever you have a disease or the virus like that, your body is kind of naturally protecting your baby. So whenever you are giving birth, they have a little bit of extra protection from contracting that virus.
Okay.
That's just kind of the general of what I've read about the science behind it.
I have read that people that have contracted AIDS can have children without passing it on.
Yeah.
Which
there's a lot of great medical Brady helped me with a word. Thank you. Yeah. Medical advances.
Yeah. There is some kind of a medication, I think, that after a certain period of time you have to start taking it.
I'll have to look into that because that's I'll have to just look into that because that's super interesting. Yeah. Because
you would think it wouldn't.
HIV is and AIDS. That's different than it's actually bloodborne. Yeah. You can contract it through like any type of bodily fluids. But
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. If I am, let me know.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
But
I'll look it up.
I read it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get up.
Fascinating stuff, and it's really helpful. Educate. It goes back to the story with my friend of like, I think she was talking to her partner too about like, hey, you've got something going on. And they like, after she got her positive results and was like, you had that cut in your lip, that could have totally caused it. And the person was in denial. That partner was like, no, it wasn't a cold sore, blah, blah, blah. And so again, it's so important to educate yourself. If you hold this, if you don't, it affects everyone. And it has the potential to affect everyone. So why not get some education around it?
Absolutely.
Help minimize the stigma around STIs, and just have people, it's not hard, again, to say, oh, you know what? I have a cold sore and I know how they're spread. I know that they can be spread to this place. I know when it feels like when they're coming. I know what to do to avoid them, or not avoid them, but like help them, get over it or when.
But I do have to say, like, it is hard disclosing that type of information.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily, like, if you have a cold sore because, it's on your face or you have a canker sore in your mouth or something. But, like, disclosing, like, that you have genital herpes, that really, like I said, there's that stigma. And it's, no matter how hard we try, it's going to take a lot of work to get rid of that. And so that's always going to be like in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Do I really want to, like, is this relationship is this, I don't know, what, this one night stand or,
Fling.
a fuck buddy, is it going to be worth having to disclose that and putting, that out there, that personal information? Because you're very vulnerable whenever you disclose something like that.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how they're going to react. You don't know what their education or their background is. You don't know.
I would be nervous to disclose it to a one night stand, and they're like, "Yeah, don't worry about it."
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah, because then now I'm wondering, like, wait a minute,
What do you have that you're...
what kind of risky lifestyle are you running around with?
Right.
You're not concerned. You don't want to have this conversation.
Yeah, because, just normal protection, like condoms and everything. So if you don't have an outbreak, that will protect you for the most part.
So condoms will not protect you during an outbreak.
That's not true.
There's still
You
a
still
risk.
have a risk.
Yeah.
You still, that's upping your risk factor for sure. But like not coming into contact with a sore, that's probably your main concern.
Sure.
That's how it's really going to spread or get.
Yeah. So I was going to ask how your intimate relationship is with your spouse when you do have an outbreak. Like, do you guys just like leave panties on and just like play around, or is it just one of those things that's like, you know what, I'm not feeling good,
Right.
I'm gonna heal over here and I'll come back when I'm
It's a little
ready?
bit of both.
Okay.
A little bit of both. Like sometimes like it won't, it's going to be like a small outbreak, or it's right before I'm like, I'm just not feeling so hot. I don't want to chance it. And, it's all about your partner's pleasure that day. And you get a toy out and, you find other ways.
Absolutely.
Or, if it is one of the times that you're having a bad outbreak, yeah, you go curl up in a ball and you're like, I'm going to heal over here, with my plague. I got the herpes. Stay away.
Leave me alone.
Don't touch me.
Right? Like that's what I would be, that's why I wanted to ask about your mentality or like what was going through your mind when you first got the diagnosis, right? I would totally feel like, oh my God, no one can ever touch me again.
Right. Oh,
like all of these things.
It was horrible,
Yeah.
like in the very beginning, for sure. Because like you mentioned, there wasn't any like a role model. There wasn't anywhere that I could turn or like someone that I could, go to that could relate. Because anyone and everyone that I was surrounded by, they kind of had the same mindset and the stigma with you have to be a completely raging whore to get herpes. I mean, that's the only case, right? They all had that kind of mindset. And that was not the case.
That's hard. And like, bravo for having such a good experience now, because you're like, I've been very fortunate to never have a partner react poorly with it. I've had healthy babies, like all of that. That's incredible because anyone I'm sure who's listening to this or who has ever experienced that type of diagnosis probably had all of those thoughts running through their head,
yes.
or maybe still have those thoughts running through their head and they're like, I haven't had sex in 10 years because, whatever,
right.
and it's
whatever the case, because
really
it's really
unfortunate.
hard
Yeah.
to get that stigma out of your own head, even though it doesn't have any place in my world or my relationships, friendships, anything like that. But still just it's just kind of like a culture, right?
Yeah.
It's just there. And, even now today, if I got an outbreak, I would just kind of roll my eyes and like, ugh, because it's something that I've had to live with for so long, and I will for the rest of my life. And it was just because of a person that I chose to trust. And, I am not sure if this person knew or not. That wasn't ever disclosed. But I ultimately put myself in that position. So now here we are.
Yeah. It's the risk you take every single time you're intimate with anyone, right?
Absolutely.
But it's not a life-ending risk.
No. And it's not so life-altering that you will, some people can take it so hard that it's like a scarlet letter right on their shoulder forever and ever. And that isn't the case. You can have such healthy relationships and you can have lots and really great sex. And that does not mean that you're going to spread it to the first person or the second person or anyone that touches you.
Yeah. Like you said, you've had very successful relationships, have not spread it to anyone.
No.
Has been able to protect all those that you love. You have a question, Brady? Raised your hand.
No, it's just the time.
Oh.
We talked about this before.
Okay. Wait.
Well, it's kind of a behind
Go
the
ahead.
scenes.
Go ahead. Ask a question.
Oh, well,
Now you're on the clock.
actually, I do have a question. You've said you have 2 children. Mm-hmm. Have you already sort of like planned out having a conversation with them about this, or maybe have had a conversation with them, or is this like I don't know how old your kids are, so maybe it's like down the road.
It's going to be down the road. They're pretty young right now. But yeah, I have thought about whenever the time comes of whenever we are going to have like a sexual education talk and all of that. And I'm just going to add it in there. As for the time, like if or when I will disclose my own experience, I think that will be much farther down the road once they're teenagers and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I will most certainly be educating them on STIs, STDs, all the things. Like even now, like I said, my children are very young, but we use the proper names for our genitalia. My daughter,
such a nurse.
Yeah, my daughter knows like what her ovaries are, her fallopian tubes, her uterus. I've always had this big thing. I'm like, no, babies aren't in our bellies. It's in our uterus. And once the babies grow, it makes our bellies big, you know? So she's like, oh, there's a baby in her uterus. You know, she sees a pregnant woman. And so.
Do you have a fetus in there?
Right. Like, yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
My mom was a nurse, and so she left her like textbooks around that she had studied with. And so like I was always adamant about, like, she educated me about condoms, but I also like read the horror stories and stuff in the in the journals. So like safe sex was like, I was pretty good at it in high school.
See, that's perfect.
Yeah. But I never even, it's funny because herpes was not ever really on my radar.
Yeah, wasn't mine either.
That wasn't something I thought about.
And
my concern was like AIDS, right?
Right.
Like,
Worst case scenario. Yeah.
that was also the
all
time we grew up too, because there wasn't, it was a death sentence when we kind of were at that age too. And I was so ignorant. Like when you were like, hey, I didn't have a problem with safe sex, I was like, oh, no need to worry about a condom. Like I was a fucking idiot, you guys. Like I'm so impressed. Like just with, I wasn't educated. I was very arrogant and ignorant, and it'll never happen to me.
Yeah.
And I was okay this time, so I'll probably be okay next time and the next time and whatever. And that mentality is what spreads misinformation and stigma and all sorts of things that we don't want. I am a proud owner of herpes. I am not a proud owner of ignorance, right? Like I want to, I guess like not a proud owner, but like I want to be able to own that. That's something I do get to choose. You get to choose where you get your education, how much education you get. You might not be able to get to choose some of these other things that happen to you, right?
Right.
And so anyway, there's my little soapbox. I'll sit back down.
I was told by somebody in high school, somebody told me that like, you better be careful because girls that are trying to lock you down will poke holes in your condoms and try to get pregnant. So I always like guarded, like I was like super serious about like, no,
it's like
I'll
the girl with the drink at the party. She's like protecting it, and you're like protecting your condom in the same way.
I'll put it on, don't touch it.
Yeah.
What are you doing with those scissors?
Get your teeth away from that package.
Yeah, like, well, that's why I was like, how like you can pop a balloon like with your little canine or something. Just like
just really gnawing on it.
Oh, that gave me such a great image. But
condoms taste terrible.
Even the flavored ones aren't great.
So bad.
But they're great when that's your option. So, so if you were to give anyone advice who was newly diagnosed with herpes, genital herpes, what would be some tips that you'd give them?
Educate yourself. I think that's probably the biggest one. Educate yourself and know that it's not like a sentence that you can never be loved, never be touched, you know, or slut shame yourself. Or don't do it. You're going to have a completely normal and happy and healthy relationships in life after. Just be able to read your body also. That's another really big one, because you will start learning that you have your own little cues besides the normal, like, oh, I'm starting to get the little lightning bolts, you know, little shock pains or whatever you call them, Mariah.
Zaps?
Zings, yeah.
Twinges.
Yeah. You'll be able to read those signs from your own body before those even happen. So you can just go ahead to your medicine cabinet and get your Valtrex and call it good.
That's awesome. So don't slut shame yourself, educate yourself. And, you know, you've had years to educate yourself. And when you couldn't just pull out your phone and do it. But is there any current, you know, anything that you follow, anyone that like really stands out to you, or really it's just go find a bunch of different sources?
I think it's honestly go find a bunch of, you know, different sources. And you can't just rely on one, because everybody's going to have their own story. But, you know, now that you said this, I did get on like a forum whenever I was pretty on the early days of this. And that kind of helped that I got to read other people's successes.
Like a community.
Yeah. That
Facebook groups, they are out there.
Right.
Yeah.
At this point in time, like I'm not, you know, a part of any of those Facebook groups or whatever, since I've been living with this for so long. But that would have been very helpful at that time of being especially newly diagnosed. It's just finding other people kind of like you that are living happy and healthy lives.
That role model. Go find your role model. Even if we don't have any quite in media yet, you know, I think we're kind of getting there.
Yeah.
If you start following a lot of like, you know, the sex positive Instagrammers, that kind of thing, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of one saying, please start calling it herpes. It is herpes.
Right.
It, you know, it's not this fluffy name. And then just that alone can help people go find more information. Be like, well, hold on. If it
or
is,
even feel
why
safe. Even feel safe to like, you know, talk to somebody, because, you know, it's just kind of common. Hey, I have herpes. And once it's not so stigmatized, I think more people will feel safer to reach out to others.
I could be wrong, but aren't there like herpes positive dating sites?
Hell, I don't know.
Like
There is a dating site for everything, so I'm absolutely certain it does. Still does not mean, again, just like my husband, with both of us getting cold sores, that we're like freely willy-nilly out there, you know, hey, you got to break out, I'm still going to eat your face or something. Like, not at all.
No.
But it's probably, it helps with, you know, not that big having to
You have to have that reveal moment.
Yeah. It's almost kind of like, so I'm sure it does help with the safety of that. And I know, you know, you're not going to judge me because you've been in that same situation. But I really want to stress the fact that just because you've listened to Mandy's story today doesn't mean you shouldn't go out and explore more resources. Like, go follow some Instagram, go follow, you know, a Facebook page, or even if you don't have it, it is great to have that, because you can be a support for a friend who does, right? Yeah. You know, when my friend told me about this story, I was like, oh shit, that fucking sucks. I don't know anything. I need to educate myself more, right?
I think we have that it's a mutual friend.
It's a friend.
And heartbroken.
Yeah. And so it was just kind of like,
when I heard the story, I was like, oh, I feel so bad for you. I was like, oh.
That was my reaction too. And then like checking myself on my education, I'm like, you're going to keep being an educator in this field. Like, I would know more. Yeah. But there are so many things that I can just like
you can go down a rabbit hole, like, and just find out all kinds of information.
So it really helped me. It got me interested in finding more information, right? And so I appreciated that. But also at the same time, I was like, I could have reacted a little bit better, even if externally I didn't react that way to that friend. But I was just like, oh shit, that fucking sucks.
Right. It does though. Right? I mean, yeah, it does.
And so it's just kind of for checking my own reaction, right, has kind of helped me, like, how do you react, or what would support, you know, a friend if they ever disclose it to you. It's not even an intimate partner, right? But it's someone that you want to disclose to or whatever. And so I want to challenge everybody who's listening to think about how would they react if their child told them, or if anything else, kind of just be prepared for that. Even if you think you're completely immune to this, you're never going to have it. Someone you love does have it. Because 1 in 5. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Mandy, thank you so much for being vulnerable.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it. I love your medical knowledge too.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. That was super educational.
Yeah. Thanks. No problem.
We have lots of fun things coming up for the podcast. We have our 100th episode. I've been saying it for a while now. If you follow us on social media, you know that we're really, really excited for this event. So mark your calendars for May 28th. You can get your tickets through our website, saltysexcast.com.
It's not just an episode, it's a party.
Yeah. 100th episode celebration. Sorry, I probably should have been more clear on that. Like axe throwing, cornhole, DJ, food, drinks. The drinks are going to be great. We have partnered with Ogden City Brew Supply and going to be making our own signature Salty Sex Cast sour beer, which I love sour beer, so I'm really, really excited for this. It's going to be such a fucking blast. So you can get your tickets. They're $15. But since you're a listener, you can use the code ILISTEN. So ILISTEN. I have to really imagine it in the space around me, but written out. I'm not a good mind spiller, right? I have to visually see words. Anyway, if you use ILISTEN, you get $5 off your ticket. So if you're in Northern Utah or want to travel to Northern Utah for our big party in May 28th, we would love to have you. I'm also going to ask one more favor from all of you to go on to Apple Podcasts. You don't have to have an Apple phone. You don't have to even have an Apple account, and give us a rating and a review. Tell everybody else what you think of the podcast. Let us know if there's anything we can improve on or if we're just rocking it. It's great to share that. I really appreciate everybody who's listened, been a long-time listener or a new listener. Welcome. Anything you want to say, Brady? I kind of did a long spiel.
I kind of think you nailed it. Patreon.com/saltysexcast.
Yeah.
saltysexcast@gmail.com. Twitter is @saltysexcast. Instagram is some bizarre spelling of Salty Sexcast, right?
It's not a bizarre spelling. It's spelled out with a bunch of periods in between. If you go to saltysexcast.com, you can get to everything else.
Go to the website.
Go to the website. Yep. One-stop shop.
The Instagram's pretty funny because my love language is memes. And I randomly will send sexual health related memes to Mariah. And then I check Instagram later to see if that one made the cut.
I have a lot saved because I don't want to just meme.
Well, everything. I'll meme bomb you because I do end up I end up down a rabbit hole and I'm like, this one. And then I get off there and I text you. So
love it. Well, before you start sending them, we're going to end it. Okay.
What?
Bye, everyone.
Bye. No, the other one.
Which one? The blue one, purple one, pink one, orange.
Yay!
Pink. Oh yeah, forgot about that.
Thank you for listening to the Salty Sex
This
Cast.
one. This one. All three. Down.
Ready for round 2? Find us on Facebook.